Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 17th episode of Business Chunautiyan. I'm not sure if you'll remember, Business Chunautiyan, a monthly event which is held on last Saturday of every month, was a very freak idea that came up when the pandemic. And it was started with an idea of bringing people together within the industry to share the challenges so that we can collaborate and collectively fight the unexpected events of the pandemic. But well, it didn't stop on that first event. We've covered multiple events on various challenges, whether it was the refrigeration industry, whether it was the air conditioning industry, or the ventilation industry. We brought you fabulous Indian stories of Indian entrepreneurs who have actually scaled up their business and who have done very well. And these have been stories that we have brought you across the country. And today, most of us tend, or at least people who are in the industry don't think so, but the majority of the people, and especially the government, there's a lack of understanding of what our industry does. Not surprised. We get taxed at 28% and at 18% sin tax, and that clearly shows that there's a lack of understanding. Refrigeration isn't just about a refrigerator at home. We play a much bigger role. Air conditioning is just not about comfort, it's part of productivity. It's a nation building activity. And this industry is poised for growth 8 times over the next 2 decades. Now, this industry can create a lot of jobs. We are a country where air conditioning is just about 6% of the penetration as far as air conditioning is concerned, while the neighboring equally large country has got close to about 50%. So the way we look at it is, why is it only 6%? Why is it that only 6% of a population can afford productivity? Ours is an industry which can create multiple jobs, great job opportunity creations. Why not expect the government to support us? So today we are going to bring you that aspect of that industry, of our industry, which is helping a very difficult time like the COVID. And vaccination is the only way we can get out of the situation. And to help me put this event together is Akash. Hi, Akash. All right. Akash has just taken a back seat on his network, but not an issue. Hey, Akash. Hi. Welcome back. Good, Akash.
Hi,
So,
Ajit.
hi. So you've been part of this entire journey of how we built the association. Do you want to share something with our viewers about how we've used the most difficult time of COVID in bringing the industry together?
Absolutely, Ajit. I think if I say that all our plans went for a toss, I would be absolutely right, because our plans went for a toss, and they went for a toss positively. We passed every figure that we were thinking of. And when we talk about figures, it's about how many members can we reach out to, how many people can we bring together into the Refrigeration Trade Association as one united voice. And the idea was to reach out to each and every part of the country, which you can imagine when it was offline, how logistics would have played around to make this entire process, move at the pace that it was always going pre-COVID. But with COVID coming in and everybody with the fear setting in, with the stock market crashing, with everyone worried about their lives, with everyone going and sitting in a corner in their house, not getting their daily provisions, here Rata, and I would give credit to you, Ajit, thought of how we can actually use this as an opportunity, go online, start building systems on the base of which we can connect as many people who we couldn't have dreamt we could have connected at such a fast pace pre-COVID. So the numbers speak. I mean, you are taking Rata to almost reaching 1,000 members, and that is 1,000 MSMEs, companies, with each one of them having an average staff of say 50 to 100. So you can imagine the number of people we are already brought together, talking one voice, sharing all their problems together, all their challenges, and thinking of a solution that can benefit each member in this trade. Thanks, Ajit.
That's true,
Seriously,
Akash.
this is something that we are extremely proud of today, being part of Rata.
Absolutely, Akash. But we've also 13 committees in 13 cities and over 100 people who are part of our committees across the country who've actually tirelessly put that time together to bring the industry together. So before we introduce our speakers today, we have 2 other members who's actually helped us put this event together. Rajat, I want you to set up. Thank you so much for putting this event together. Rajat is the director at TESOL. So Rajat, you should set the tone and you should tell us what are the challenges that the refrigeration industry is facing.
Thank you, Jeet and Akash. It's been a pleasure doing this together with you, and I think it gives us a sort of a larger motive behind doing what we do on a daily basis. So thank you so much for the opportunity. As far as the refrigeration industry is concerned, I think one of the things that I realized while we were going through this pandemic is that as an industry, we have been in some sense very sort of restricted to ourselves. We have one of the challenges that I've seen is that we work in our own silo as a refrigeration industry, and therefore there is a bit of a lack of this communication on a constant basis with end customers. I think there is a lot of value that is being created within the refrigeration industry in form of newer technologies, newer efficiency, equipments, etc. But at the end of the day, when you go into the market, you have customers who are primarily looking at a low first cost, and you're looking at things which are probably not the best suited in a longer term. So I think some sort of a communication, some kind of a regular dialogue with the end customers is one of the things that I believe is very, very critical for the refrigeration industry to now start off in order to be able to build solutions for the longer term, also create business models. And I think some of our eminent speakers have actually gone through the challenge of being able to put in higher cost products through certain business models into the market. And I think that'll be one of the interesting things to understand and think about. The second element I felt was that the end users are mostly using the refrigeration as a service right from the beginning till the end of their chain, right from a factory to homes, or from a farm to the fork. While the refrigeration industry itself looks at it from a very product standpoint. I am a cold room manufacturer, I am a freezer manufacturer, and so there is a certain element of integration which is required in order to give an overall service or an overall end-to-end solution to a customer. So that's where I think there is more potential for collaboration and understanding of each other's products and technologies, which could really help the refrigeration industry. And these kind of conversations that we have with end users could be a great channel for us to understand that bit and see how we could come together. And third is a slightly more sort of evolving thought, which was around a sudden increase in commodity prices that have happened across the industry, the metal, copper, etc., which is something which has been unprecedented in the times that I have seen in this industry. And that's something which I'm finding very, very difficult to communicate to customers, and I'm sure most of our members are also finding it difficult. So I think this is something that we need to sort of represent as a complete body and try to figure out ways around this going forward. But I'm very excited to have all these eminent members as a part of the panel and look forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Rajat. Thank you so much. You just kind of just set the tone of the difficulties. In a nutshell, everything that the team and everything all the members have been speaking from the industry. Another colleague of ours is Parth, who's actually helped us put this event together. Thank you, Parth, for joining us and helping us put this event together. So Parth is the director at Paul Frost, a very old refrigeration company. So Parth, from the discussion that we've had with members, what is it that you think that the government should be playing a role? I mean, should the government take this as a focus industry? And if they take it as a focus industry, what is it that they need to be doing for us?
Thanks, Ajit, first of all, for inviting and letting us be a part of organizing committee for this program. For anything that RATA does, for RATA to make sense of a program, it has to be a national motive, right? That's when RATA picks it up. So while I think if RATA is making so much of an effort and an initiative to take things for the HVAC and our industry to be a national movement, I think it's time the government recognized RATA and our initiatives to do the same. Now, as far as today's program is concerned, when we talk about the cold chain and why we want the government to recognize us as an industry in HVAC and our segment, it's something that is long due, isn't it? I mean, we've been growing consistently over the years. We have big names in the industry. We have air conditioners in every government office, right? Where we are seen everywhere, but we are not getting that visibility with the government regulations currently. So that's actually something where we are lacking a little bit, and we as an industry need to up our game and make ourselves noticed with the government. The only thing I feel where we have not uh, made noise is to, you know, make a huge hue and cry about what we do and how we do about it, which I think the COVID vaccination drive again successfully did. You know, we were in the newspapers, we were in international headlines, you know, Pfizer setting up freezer farms in the US, and you know, so many things. So finally we made headlines, didn't we? But then still, for the government to recognize us, we need their attention, and we need them to understand that today we as a country of manufacturers and as a country of MSME people supporting the bigger ones in the country, supporting the big manufacturers of the country, we need some attention from them as far as the working capital, as far as the manpower, as far as the skill development and all of that is concerned. Because somewhere when COVID affects, it's still making a headlines in the newspapers that why is the MSME industry still in hopes that the government will consider them again for some financial incentives or something like that. So while we as an industry in the country are an equal bag of services and manufacturing in the HVAC and R line, I think the manufacturing segment of the MSME needs much more support, because ours is an industry which is not just an assembly line. We need skilled workers. We need to retain them over the years, to retain our expertise, to be able to service the equipment that we've put into the market. And we are much more a skilled labor industry where labor does not come cheap. So that being one of the things. Apart from that, when things like COVID come in, like Rajat rightly highlighted, that the copper prices have been affecting us so badly. There are other things where the government could make benefit of, like we could, as MSME working in HVAC and our manufacturing, could be given export based incentives. uh, Maybe we could be covered for import restrictions on voluminous goods, for which we are not necessarily dependent on foreign production, like deep freezers and chillers and refrigeration units. These are things which we as a country, we as an Indian skill set, can make best suited for our country. When foreign brands enter our country, they have to write on their units tropicalized. So when we as the Indian MSME segment have already tropicalized our units since the birth of refrigeration in India, why don't we get considered by the government for import substitutes? And when we get considered for import substitutes, there are various schemes of the government for MSME which are already in place. There are schemes like Prime Minister Employment Generation Program and other credit support schemes. There are technology upgradation and quality certification schemes by the government for MSME. There are marketing promotion schemes. There are entrepreneurship and skill development programs where startups and the new entrepreneurs coming up are promoted. Infrastructure development program where there are credit link schemes for technology upgradation available for so many industries. But I was just going through that scheme, and nowhere was HVAC and are written as part of the engineering subsector as well. So we are not recognized at all. And today's program is to show you that post-COVID MSME strength and the role of refrigeration and HVAC in vaccine distribution has been handled so well by our own people. And it's time that we need the support from the government, where we can strengthen many more areas of cooling, just like we did it for the vaccination drive this time.
Awesome.
True. So
Thanks.
there are many expectations. It's all about how far we can make Rata reach.
Well, we are not giving up hope. We are going to make every effort. So thanks, Parth, on giving those inputs. Also, for all our viewers, at the association, we are very actively writing a white paper this is in partnership with the Indian Merchant Chambers based out of Mumbai. We're writing a white paper on component manufacturing, import substitutes like our Parth was talking about, and how we can build that ecosystem in India as part of the Atmanirbhar program. That's a project that's ongoing right now, and hopefully in the next few months that paper should be released. So without waiting, let's get into the whole opportunities and challenges of the event today. And I'm happy to introduce our first speaker today, Mr. Sameer Verma. Hello, Mr. Sameer. Thank you for taking time out for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Ajit. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So, thanks. Sameer is part of the founding team for Tuscan Ventures, which is a Mumbai-based investing firm. Sameer's focus areas are logistics, retail, and supply chain enabling technologies, food services, among others. Sameer started his career at AP Moller, Maersk AS holding positions in operations, sales, marketing, and trade management for the group in diverse geographies across India and Asia. As part of the team at Tuscan Ventures, Sameer has been deeply involved with building the cold chain business of Cold Star Logistics. Cold Star Logistics, being incubated at Tuscan Ventures, is a multi-commodity third-party temperature-controlled logistics company. Its services include warehousing, transportation, and other value-added services for a variety of clients across food and healthcare. Cold Star Logistics at its core, a supply chain company that leverages its own as well as third-party infrastructure and technology to deliver efficiency and value for its clients. Thank you, Sameer. Thank you very much for being part of this discussion today.
My pleasure.
Great. Our next speaker is Ms. Tanvi Naik. Thank you, Tanvi, for taking time out. So Tanvi had confirmed to our meeting.
For having me here, Ajit.
Yeah, a special thank you to you. We know you have a medical challenge within the family, but you still took out to keep up to your commitment. Thank you so much for being with us today. So Tanvi Naik, she's the youngest member of the board of Arima Transport and the latest entrant with a master's in SEM and logistics with Metropolitan University in Manchester, UK. She is well poised to take on the mantle of responsibility to lead from the front. She's currently managing and promoting the company's brand image while also working closely with the quality and compliance team, apart from handling some key customer accounts. Thank you so much, Tanvi. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker, our next panelist is Mr. Jaishankar Natarajan. Thank you, Mr. Jaishankar, for joining us today. Yeah, I think you're muted. You might have to unmute.
Thank you, Ajit. Pleasure coming here and being part of this light panel and sharing with us with all whatever we have gone through in terms of managing vaccine cold chain supplies.
Awesome. So Mr. Jaishankar Natarajan is the Associate Vice President and Head New Business Development of Godrej Appliances, a flagship division of Godrej and Boyce Manufacturing Company Limited. Mr. Natarajan has an experience of over 2.5 decades in Godrej and the appliance industry, including a brief stint of 8 years in a joint venture collaboration of Godrej with GE Appliances. He has worked across functions within Godrej Appliances, having had stints in contract management, strategic sourcing, setting up vendor base for greenfield projects, heading new product development, initially focusing on brown goods and thereafter focusing primarily on setting up external collaborative innovative networks with academia, startup firms, incubating firms and application development firms to build a pool of innovative ideas for the organization. In his current role, he is tasked to evaluate new business opportunities in the adjacent spaces, prepare a robust entry business case, germinate and scale up spotted opportunities. Mr. Jaishankar is a BE Mechanical graduate and Masters in Administrative Management. He's also completed his APICS CPIM certification from Virginia, US. Thank you so much, Mr. Jaishankar. Our last panelist today is Mr. Jaisal Doshi. Thank you, Mr. Jaisal, for taking time out for being with us today.
Thank you, Ajit. My pleasure to be here.
Great. Mr. Jaisal Doshi is the CEO of B Medical, a global refrigeration device manufacturer. Since joining the company, Mr. Jaisal has transformed the company from a regional niche company to one of the most innovative companies in the medical refrigeration field. Mr. Doshi was instrumental in strategic expansion of B Medical Systems into India and the US and has launched several initiatives to extend the company's reach into new markets and customer segments, thereby contributing significantly to the growth of B Medical Systems. Before joining B Medical Systems, Mr. Jaisal Doshi has worked in private equity managing investments exceeding over $300 million. He moved from private equity to B Medical Systems with a vision to save lives and have a lasting impact. He has also been on the board of several companies in India, Malaysia, Singapore, Europe, and the US. He has lived and worked across India, Southeast Asia, Europe, and the US. Mr. Doshi holds an MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur in India and has a bachelor's in engineering, BE in electronics from the University of Mumbai, India. That's the fabulous elite panelists that we put together to bring this whole journey of COVID vaccination. And is that possible without the refrigeration industry? So, to getting started, first is the ignorance front. These are companies who are sitting quietly at the back end and supporting India to come back. So, before I start, I think we need to hear from each of them as to what they do, what are the challenges they face. So, let's hear it from you, Samir, first. Tell all our viewers as to what your company does. What is it that they do, and how do they play such a huge role in the COVID vaccination program?
Thanks, Ajit. Let me give you sort of a short brief on what we're up to. So, I represent Tuscan Ventures. We're an investment firm based out of Bombay. We have been around for over 13 years now, and we've been investing in the logistics space since 2007, 2008. Cold chain as a segment within logistics has always been of interest to us, right from the time we actually put a white paper together for setting up Tuscan. Um, and one of the things that we always found with cold chain was that the businesses and the solutions were, to for want of a better word, subscale, which is the reason why large enterprises weren't emerging from the country. And this was really what one of the problem statements that we sort of put out back in 2010. And after having spent close to a year meeting with users of cold chain as well as companies that were manufacturing components for cold storages, trucks, small warehouses, so on and so forth, we sort of put together a little plan which essentially said, let's build out a platform which allows products as well as industries to sort of lean on to offer complex supply chain services. And to very simply put it, a healthcare product requires tremendous care in handling it from manufacturing to the point that it comes to your house and you sort of inject it in your body. And unless you're able to build products or build solutions with scale, you're unable to really reach the length and breadth of the country. That was really what the premise was in 2010 when we thought about putting together a platform for cold chain, and that came about in the form of us incubating Coldstar back in 2010. And as part of sort of growing out Coldstar, we focused on two industries. And the first industry that we've always focused on and where we sort of cut our teeth back in 2010, 11 when we started off was transportation of the polio vaccines to PHCs in Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, Bihar, interiors of Madhya Pradesh. And that's really where we figured out the difference between what you put on an Excel sheet and sort of model out a business to actually running a, a true blue cold chain operation in India, right? And that's what we've actually done. Since then till now, we've gone out and built out sort of a network of storages, built out sort of a transport network, and we offer a comprehensive supply chain solution for the healthcare space, which includes simple things like primary transport, includes storage, distribution, last mile connectivity, packaging, conditioning, international evacuation, domestic distribution, so on and so forth. So if you were a manufacturer of pharmaceutical products, be it injectables, vaccines, what have you, Colstar is the one-stop shop for you. That's what we've been attempting to do. And as part of Tuscan, while I oversee the Colstar operation, it allows me an interesting view as to look at newer technologies and innovative solutions that we can clip onto Colstar to make our offering a lot more efficient, a lot more scalable, thereby solving for the first problem statement was making a scalable solution for whether it's a vaccine problem that we have today, whether it's something else, so on and so forth. That's really what we've been up to for the past 13 odd years now.
Amazing, Samir. In fact, most of our viewers who view this program, which is the monthly program, are primarily entrepreneurs from the HVAC industry. I'm sure they haven't heard an investor speak ever on any of our panels, because we are a typical MSME, brick and mortar business, family-run businesses, or partnership firm businesses. Never, very handful of them who have actually been private equity or VC driven. So it's awesome to have you. It gives the whole industry a very, very different perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I also want to now ask, hi Tanvi. So why don't you tell us what your company's been doing? Rima Transport, you're very well established. You're second generation into the business.
Yes.
What's the transport business got to do in the refrigeration industry? Enlighten our viewers today. What is Rima Transport all about?
Well, thanks, Ajit. Like you just mentioned, brick and mortar. There we are. We are a family business firm. We started almost we are almost a 4 decades old company. Started up as a transportation, parcel services between Mumbai and Goa, and now we are spread across the country, and majorly into reefer and non-reefer transportation. We are the experts for pharmaceutical transportation. We are catering to that niche. And why we started with Bombay, Goa is, Goa started as that, pharma hub. Like you'll see all these major pharma companies have their big, huge plants in Goa. And back in those days, about 4 decades ago, and they are the ones who motivated us and to get into the reefer transportation, because back in the days there was very less compliances and all those things in place. Now that everyone's more aware of how temperature control transportation is important for quality control. Quality control's taken a next level in pharmaceutical and food industry. So that's where we got an opportunity and we took it up. Now we have the transportation services in plus temperatures to up to minus 20, minus 25, where you transport vaccines, or you transport blood plasma, or all injectables, or even plus temperatures for formulations or APIs, and all of those sorts. So we've at the moment, while we talk about COVID, we have been one of the first transporters to get into transporting Covishield and Covaxin within the country, and we are majorly into the primary transportation. So anything that has got to do to transport the products from their manufacturing plants to their distribution centers is where we play a major role, or from the manufacturing plants to the export, to the airports, or export material is where we play a part. And that's been a amazing last year for us, where huge challenges have come up, but we've been able to fight through and survive, because that was what last year was about. Making sure you are working through with all the challenges that are thrown at you, and you just make sure that you keep the wheels rolling and keep people just started getting the importance of transportation, how we are actually essential services.
That's true.
And we are happy to know that people are recognizing us. Previously nobody paid attention to them, but like I think Parth also mentioned, that we came up in the news. Similarly, transport companies also came up in the news, came up in the papers. How the truck is loaded, how it is moving with a convoy of police vans, and that's when we all got this attention that that's what a reefer truck is. Poonawala made us famous as well. So that was a good one for us.
Yeah, but for a country like ours, which is so large, which is the world's largest vaccination program, without companies like yours, I don't think this program would have even been possible.
I am absolutely proud, to be a part of it in whatever way we can, especially, for all of you out there as well on this panel, all the reefer partners, all the, people who make the boxes, the reefer boxes, everyone has played a very important role in, making things happen quickly, because, nobody knew, when and how fast these things are going to happen. Everyone's been waiting for the vaccine, but when it came, it was just like, quickly things started rolling. And it was a very good way that all of the parts, spokes of the wheel came together, and we made it happen. It's a very
Amazing.
good, well managed, I think, a vaccine drive for a country like ours. And I can see that vaccines, initially I think there was a little trouble in getting enough vaccines everywhere, but now it's absolutely amazing that everyone's getting vaccinated, and more and more people are aware of the quality, temperature needed, and all of those things.
No, I'm sure post this event, the whole idea of putting this event together was also to sensitize everybody the role and the effort that goes around distributing vaccinations across the country. So let's also hear it from Mr. Jaishankar. Mr. Jaishankar, your Godrej is a name which is there. Everyone knows across every home. I mean, people were surprised actually when we sent out the mailer. I said, "What is Godrej doing out here?" I said, "Yeah, you hear them out and see what they are doing it." So why don't you tell our viewers what has Godrej been doing in helping this whole vaccination effort, and how you've actually geared up, and what are the challenges that you've been facing? Why don't you tell our viewers about it?
Thanks, Ajit. I wanted to dwell on a couple of things which probably is trivia for many. Godrej is a pioneer of refrigeration systems in India. We bought the first refrigeration plant in 1958, and we were the first to also introduce technology like puff in 1983-84. So that's small trivia. We are a 123-year-old company. I'm not going to talk much about home appliances. Back in 2012, 2013, the leadership team got together and tried to figure out what should be our way forward for the next 10 years. So there was some program called 10 by 10. It was quite famous. It was flashed across the entire Godrej group as 10x by 10, grow 10 times in 10 years. So we sat together to understand where exactly, what kind of skill sets do we have. And one thing which came to us very clearly was we had immense strength in understanding cooling and refrigeration systems. We had very good understanding of how consumers use our product and what kind of infrastructure is available for appliances within India. And we have been exporting to several countries. So we had a lot of data on what kind of design works in which country. So a lot of strengths over there. And we felt that we could be of great service to the nation if we focus on a couple of areas. One was on healthcare cold chain, and the second one was on food cold chain, basically perishables and all. And both are big problem areas. When we entered, I took it upon myself to visit as many stakeholders in this whole healthcare cold chain, met government ministry officials, UNICEF, WHO, a couple of consultants. And what came out was a huge amount of vaccine wastage. There were some standards which were laid down by WHO, Practically 100% of what was WHO certified and used by government was imported. There was no Indian manufacturer who could supply WHO qualified products. That was something which took us aback, because here we were in India with big names like Blue Star, Voltas, and Godrej, big Indian players who had wherewithal to actually do all these things. And we set upon ourselves to kind of set the standards and get this act right. So we got into, and part of my job at that time also involved innovation scouting. So I used to kind of practically engage a lot of academia and universities abroad, and I came across this very unique solution for storage of vaccine, which which uses nature by way of cooling, and is power agnostic, in the sense that it, once it is stabilized, doesn't need power to maintain 4 degrees within the chamber for over 5 to 6 days. That is a big boon for rural and peri-urban, and also very, very remote locations. So we kind of tied up with them. Used our, we had a big design platform already available. We were at that point in time launching around 300 to 400 appliances every year. We had this whole platform of human centric and planet centric design thought process, which is labeled as internally as thoughtfully done. Soch ke banaya. If you see this Godrej, you will always see a Soch ke banaya tagline. So we had this whole program going. We said we will run this program even on this particular aspect of medical cold chain. And we developed a series of portfolios. We qualified ourselves for WHO PQS. We did some very unique things. We were the first within WHO PQS qualified players to actually build in a stabilizer. We found a lot of this were getting stolen. When if you provide stabilizers separately, it was conveniently being taken home and used for various other purposes. So we said, if you have vaccines which are life-giving and you need that to be supported 24/7, then you need something inbuilt which cannot be taken away. So we started building that into the refrigerator itself. It just couldn't be taken off. It was designed into the refrigerator. So those things are small things. We don't have a thermostat control, no failure of thermostat. SDTs are fairly common now. Earlier, those days, we removed battery inverters, directly connected the solar panel to DC compressors and all those things. Result was, we did pilots with government. We proved the technology to them. And as a result, we got selected for the national program to support the vaccination drive. In the last 8 months, a great amount of challenge, but the pleasure is having supplied, installed, and seeing it run. And when I saw yesterday's figure of 1 crore, heart of heart, I know behind it is what is powering it is the Godrej cold chain. And we have supplied around 25,000 units in the last 8 months across India. So that's been the effort. Mammoth task of training technicians, installing them during COVID times in COVID hospitals with permissions and everything being managed. It's been a humongous task, but we did that.
Awesome. 1 crore. That's what we did. That's right. And that's not a small task. And that wouldn't have been possible without this whole refrigeration industry. So I also want to now bring in Mr. Jason. Jason, for guys who are from Bombay, we have only seen B Medical, the entire billboard on Marine Drive. All right, till we started researching about you guys and we started figuring out who you are. So tell our viewers today how you handle this pandemic. Tell us about your company and what are the role that you played in this whole vaccination drive.
Well, thank you, Ajit, first of all, and thank you for noticing it. I'm glad you noticed it, and you're most welcome to visit us anytime. So for all the viewers out there, I think B Medical is a relatively unknown organization, and thank you to Rata also for inviting us and considering us worthy of being part of this. B Medical actually is one of probably the world's oldest company focused on the medical cold chain. And that's all we do. All we do is manufacture products and solutions for the medical cold chain, all the way from the ultra cold chain, which is the minus 86 degrees, to positive temperatures up to plus 45. And we are a company headquartered and based in Luxembourg. We manufacture till date everything in Luxembourg, where we have about a 10 lakh square feet facility. So we are fairly large for a small country like Luxembourg. And I think what COVID has done is, of course, brought us a lot of global attention, because prior to COVID, our products were used for vaccinating roughly half of the world's children. And so we carried an extremely heavy responsibility, and that reflects in our mission of saving lives using reliable and innovative technology. And we actually started off as part of a much larger group, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, which is Electrolux. So our origins are in Electrolux, and for more than 3 decades, we were known as Electrolux Medical Systems. In 2015, we had a management buyout where we became management shareholders with the support of an investment fund, and decided to rename this business to B Medical Systems, focused purely on the medical cold chain. And since then, I think, we've expanded quite a bit. You mentioned earlier on that we've entered the US, where we have our own subsidiary. And at the end of last year, as part of a bilateral discussion between the prime ministers of India and Luxembourg, we received an invitation from the Honorable Prime Minister of India to make in India under Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for me personally, it was fantastic, because when I joined the company in 2015, I said, let's do something in India. We are the world's largest, but we have negligible presence there. And the reaction was, forget India. It's a very difficult market. It's a waste of time. Blah blah blah. And in December last year, once we received this invitation, we were here in India with the entire management team. And believe it or not, but in December, we toured in 2 weeks. We visited 10 cities, and we had over 100 meetings set up, mostly by the PMO. And we were impressed. And the entire team said, wow, India is the place to be. And a few months later, we are on the verge of commencing our first manufacturing facility outside Luxembourg, which will be in Gujarat.
Amazing. That is fabulous. Yeah, fantastic. So great to hear about that. And we'd like to know more about your company. But now let's deep dive into the whole refrigeration. And nobody better than my colleague Akash, who's been in this business for a very long time, to ask those difficult questions and to get more information. So over to you, Akash, to take on this whole next line of detailing out. So over to you, Akash.
Thanks, Ajit. Thank you. So I'd like to call upon the first speaker, Samir. Hi, Samir.
Hi, Akash.
So Samir, really, it's wonderful to see how a VC is driving the cold chain business over here. Maybe we'll have to do an entire program to understand, how you've been working on it. And in spite of you, talking about a lot of things in terms of how you managed during the COVID, the sudden burst, I would still like to know that how did the vaccination impact the cold chain, or in terms of the storage and the logistics industry, and how did you cope with the same in terms of when COVID suddenly sprung up, and whatever plans you had, what was that growth opportunity you saw at that moment?
So, Akash, it's an interesting question, and this is something that my board gets tired of hearing from me every time I talk about this, because when I think COVID showed up on our radar was sometime in November or December 2019. I think that's when me and my colleagues started taking notice of what was happening in China. And from what we read thereafter, and we have an ex-colleague of ours who's now based in Singapore with a large VC fund. He was bringing in information to us, telling us of what was happening in North Asia and Southeast Asia, and it became apparent that it was just a matter of time before we started seeing it in India. I think two things that we did thereafter. One was try and understand what the COVID protocols were internationally and try and bring it into our organization, suppliers, trying to get our supply chain ready. During the lockdown in March is when conversations started creeping in around a vaccine. And I think we had multiple conversations with people we knew at the Oxford lab, which was building out AstraZeneca. We have had interactions with Pfizer previously. Have had interactions with international logistics players who we knew would be involved with a rollout eventually, whenever it did happen. What we did ourselves was, since March till about November, November of 2020, we doubled down on our capacity. We doubled down on network. We doubled down on making sure we were vaccine ready. And there were a couple of things that were not clear at that point in time. I think number one, we didn't know what the vaccine looked like. We didn't know who would possibly manufacture. But look, India, I mean, if you look at vaccination internationally, India's supply of vaccine is between 40 to 60%, depending on what vaccine you're talking about. So we knew who the usual suspects would be. We knew that India would play a large part of the manufacturing of vaccines, both for domestic consumption as well as international consumption. It was obvious, the way I think you look at any other vaccination program. We drew on our experience with handling the polio vaccination in India, in from I think from 11 till 13, when we actually did a little bit of work. I would like to say a lot of transport, a lot of management, last mile sort of handling, and on cycles and two-wheelers and three-wheelers and everything. And we said, what are we missing today? And we invested in people, we invested in vehicles, deepening of our storage network, training, and conversations with stakeholders who we believe would be involved with it. So local government, state government, central government, Niti Aayog, operators, private track, which we thought would be involved with it eventually. We didn't know from a timeline point of view. After having made sure that we made enough amount of noise, we went down and doubled down on it again. So by about November, we were sure where it was coming from. And we knew what our strengths were. We subsequently knew that the vaccination program would not be a quick burst and then it would end. We knew this was the long haul. We also knew that there would be an evolution of the vaccine, which we haven't seen thus yet, but it is bound to happen. We are going to see a phase 2 of the vaccine coming out. And what we doubled down on was, we started hearing about the temperature -70 a lot. And we actually acquired customers and acquired healthcare products that we currently store at -70 across 2 or 3 locations right now. We wanted to sort of stress test our organization to be ready. We stress test our organization with respect to handling, biomedical cargo, up that number a lot, because one of the things that actually moved during the lockdown was healthcare and biomedical cargo. I think food, you saw a slowdown, but these two bits essentially moved. That's what we did, and we got ready. And the conversations we started in July of 2020 actually started panning out for us by March of 21, when the rollout actually started. So as we speak today, we are engaged in transporting and conditioning, packaging for vaccines in 2 to 3 states. We've been employed by state and local governments right now. We also have strong partnerships in place with international logistics companies who will use our services for domestic pickup. Once the export piece actually does start, we're quite confident that will happen. So Coldstar, we started investing in November 19 to be where we are today. And that's what Tuscan essentially does. We take a long view on an opportunity like this. We also try and tie up with technology operators who can make our services better. So in a gist, that's what we've been up to, and how we've dealt with the whole left field issue of COVID actually so far.
Awesome, Samir. It's great to see, so much clarity from your point of view when you're talking about what is going to come, or, for what you need to invest into. Because at the end, when you're doing a business, you need to be sure in terms of what is going to be the long-term effect of what you're putting into. So absolutely a pleasure to listen to how you brought in that, the growth opportunity into delivering a business, which today is scaled out into exactly what you all are thinking. So I'll come back to you, Samir, with my next question. In the meantime, we'll bring Tanvi online. And hi, Tanvi.
Hi, Akash.
Extremely, it was very nice to understand how a company which used to transport from Mumbai to Goa moved into the limelight in terms of, you can say, Rima. You spoke about Poonawala, so I can say Rima supported Poonawala in the entire vaccination drive. So
We could say that, yes.
absolutely. So another big name, Rima, and I'm sure it's connected to your family somehow. So it's nice to listen to your introduction. I have a question for you. Again, it's about with the sudden increase in the demand for the vaccines, how have you increased the fleet? And again, in terms of knowing how much and how far this would go, what were the challenges that you faced?
Well, I would say yes, we did increase the fleet, but what happened was, we just before, I think, this entire COVID thing started in around March 2020, and the lockdowns. Just before that, the vehicles, the trucking industry took a big change. There was BS6 which was introduced, and new trucks were coming up, and that's when we had new trucks coming up, and we started bringing in new trucks in our fleet and adding a really good number of new vehicles. And in a couple of months we saw the whole lockdown, and it was very unexpected to see it happening at that level where everything was shut down. And first couple of months were very difficult for us as well, being, even though later on we were recognized as being essential services. At the beginning there was no clarity, and it was a big challenge at that moment. But yes, coming specifically to your question, which is about the growth, we did add a couple of vehicles towards the end of 2020, getting a more clearer vision about what is happening and who's going to be doing it. And we were already associated with Serum Institute previously, a couple of years ago, since doing their other vaccine transportation. So we were already on board and getting regular updates on just hold on, we're almost there and we're doing this, and we were just too excited to be a part of it. But yes, once since we already had a set of vehicles which was already in place, which was the newer vehicles, BS6 vehicles, by the end of 2019 or early 2020, we were already on track. But yes, by end of 2020 we got a clearer vision on how we needed more of smaller vehicles as well to do local transportations domestically, within the state, if you want to do transportation. So that happened eventually, slowly and gradually. But there was not a drastic ki vaccine aa raha hai, chalo 50 gaadiyan kharidte hain. No, not like that. Yes, there were a lot of noise in this area as well. So there were a lot of new players coming in, a lot of new transporters entering, or some people who are into only logistics wanted to get into transportation also, extending another arm kind of, which also helped the entire ecosystem of the vaccine transportation. But yes, there are a lot of compliances and quality that comes into when you talk about pharma transportation or pharma distribution. So that is where everyone cannot play a part, and someone who's more experienced or more been around, done it, kind of can lead the way maybe, and have everyone join hands and get into the groove. But yes, that was of course there. I think going forward we will discuss more challenges, because there were a lot of challenges that we did face. But over to you, Akash. That's our goal in COVID.
Thank you, Tanvi. It shows that y'all were also quite ready in terms of investing into this industry.
Yes.
And COVID just came as an opportunity for you. So brilliant. Looking forward to my next questions with you.
Right.
I'll request Mr. Jaishankar from Godrej. And again, I'm anyways proud to be part of the refrigeration industry. But Mr. Jaishankar, you just, take us to the epitome of pride, when it comes to speaking about Godrej and the legacy of, 123 years with the innovation in cooling. I think this question, is absolutely apt for you, because in spite of being there, having a plan of 10x in 10 years, tell us that how has Godrej managed on this sudden demand through the product development, and how have you increased your manufacturing activity to cater to this, and some challenges which I'm sure there were at this time.
Yeah. So, when we entered into the business, we had set up a capacity of around 10,000 units per year. But around November, December, we started noticing what's happening in China, and we quickly picked up that this is something which is going to kind of come around in a very big way across the globe. And we started also getting sound bites from government officials, various consultants whom we were engaging at that point in time, that this will eventually reach our shores sooner than later. And knowing this is going to happen, we got back and figured out, the agility and speed of response would be the key to kind of attacking this whole problem. And we knew, having done so much of surveys within India, what was lacking in the cold chain, and we knew that there will be huge amount of procurement which will suddenly happen, because it has to fill this void very quickly, and it has to kind of be up and running as quickly as possible. Now, given this fact, we had figured out three challenges. One was capacity expansion within our own plant, with our vendor partners. We figured out that going whole hog across all the SKUs was not the solution. We sat together, understood what exactly India needed, where it was be required, what kind of literage sizes would actually be needed, and we took a hedge that these are the few areas where we will tool up and expand our manufacturing line, because your jigs and fixtures for foaming setup was required, and they were quite expensive. And then we had to have this conveyors line. Capacity expansion probably started getting rolled out somewhere in January, and we quickly started putting in. We didn't wait for economic survey and financials. We just invested, and we started off immediately. And the second thing was on our ability to deliver guaranteed performance and reliability. So our labs and testing equipments had to be kind of enhanced and increased. So we focus our energies on also duplicating and building up more labs. We set up performance and reliability labs, EMI, EMC testing labs, corrosion resistant labs. So we scaled up our lab infrastructure immediately to kind of meet this demand. And then we figured out that what's happening in China is restricting movement of people, and if vaccines have to be delivered, equipments have to get installed at all the locations. And if movements are getting hindered, our technicians might not be able to go. Now we figured out that we needed something different to kind of overcome this problem. So we started creating virtual installation videos. We started explaining the concept via the technology, via a virtual video, which we started making. We had extensive training material, which we started collating. And then we started shooting indoors in our own factory, the step-by-step process of installing the refrigerator. Now, all those things came very much in handy when we actually started rolling out. So these are the some of the things we kind of ourselves, because of our experience, got together and tried to do, and it actually helped.
Awesome, Mr. Jayashankar. Again, I think that your plan to, where you were ready and you knew that you wanted to grow, you took this as an opportunity and you've jumped into it, if I can use the right phrase. So looking forward to my next questions with you. I'll invite Jaisal. Hi, Jaisal. Again, welcome to India, or can I say Padharo Gujarat mein. So brilliant to listen to you from representing from Luxembourg to India, and the government experience that you had. So it gives us also a lot of while we are proud, it also gives us a lot of hope that the government is looking at our industry, is inviting great players like you. and that's a lot of heart for the existing industry that is over here. So thank you for representing and being part as a panelist over here. I'll come to you with the same question on the growth opportunity. So I want to know, as a global player, what did you think of the ultra low temperature freezers that were there, especially because it's a global demand for you, number one. And my second part of the question is that how do you see the Indian market different from the other places that you've been serving till now?
Absolutely. So thank you first of all, Akash, for the very nice welcome, and it's a matter of honor for us to be in India. I think to respond to your question, you're right in that we did see a huge demand for our products and solutions, and I think being a global company, we had a unique advantage of seeing the situation evolve in different parts of the world. So we had the ability to realize what is happening in the US, which by and the UK, which by and far have been leading the vaccination efforts around the world and were some of the front runners, and to kind of use that expertise and experience that we gained to replicate it across different countries. I think the ultra low industry has overnight seen a transformation driven by the Pfizer vaccine. We have had numerous discussions at the board level where we've received. I still remember we received an order so large from one state of Germany that it would mean that we would not be able to service anyone else. And we took a conscious decision at that point that look, we will not block all our capacity for just one state or just for one country. So we've had that phase where we had to ration a little bit our production for the ultra low specifically. Again, the ultra low I think is very interesting and is a huge growth market because mRNA is the future, and mRNA will mean you will have a lot more ultra low capacity required across the board. What I also wanted to make mention, and you spoke about the government inviting us, is yes, I think it's been a fantastic experience with the government so far. But what we do see as a huge difference is the support that is given out between, for example, here I can take the government of Luxembourg versus the Indian government. The government of Luxembourg very early on identified us as a key part of the value chain, not just for the country, but globally. And we were the recipient of numerous grants and support from the government of Luxembourg, including, for example, in the first lockdown when cross-border movement in Europe was shut down. And we had all our pretty much 100% of our workers live in Germany, and they travel every day from Germany across the border. And for us to make sure that that border movement continued despite the COVID situation, I think the government stepped in to really help us. And I think that is something that I see as a difference between the governments in many parts of the world versus the government of India, which is, I think there is a lot of support and encouragement, but tangible actions in terms of customs duties or in terms of GST relaxations is absent so far. And what you see, for example, in the oxygen cylinders or oxygen supply, the government has stepped in with very many tangible initiatives. And for me, I think the cold chain is an extremely essential and equally important part, which has unfortunately not received any real such tangible support from the government.
Yeah, Jaisal. So when you say essential, the pharma is an essential. The fork, the farm to fork is an essential, but the essential services that are supporting the essentials are not really termed as an essential yet, and that's where we are actually bringing out the voice, saying that how is this possible without the services that are supporting that. So I absolutely echo your voice, and thank you so much, Jaisal. That was really brief and to the point. I'll come back to you with a few other challenges that I have. Hi Samir, welcome back. Now I'll come to you with a specific question on the challenges that you've been facing. So you've been actively investing in India's cold chain. Can you share with us what are the issues that are plaguing this industry, and how do you think we can overcome this?
So I think the if you look at the cold chain industry generally, you can notice that people talk about it a lot, but scale is a challenge, right? And that's really where you found that private capital hasn't found its way into cold chain, be it probably manufacturing, and I'm probably sticking my neck out over here, but private capital being one. You haven't seen too much private capital find its way into cold chain operators themselves. There are a few exceptions along the way. You have one company which IPO'd a couple of years back, but I mean, you remove all of these, and there are few and far between. And that's, I mean, our read of it is that the businesses are subscale because the clients are waiting for demand, or we are too expensive as operators, or their products can't take the price involved with the cost of cold chain, right? That's really what the biggest challenge plaguing it is. And you're right, I think Rajat touched upon it in terms of input costs shooting up, fuel prices jumping. I think Tanvi can talk about prices of vehicles. Shankar can talk about cost of imports, so on and so forth. But that's essentially, I mean, it's a bit of a vicious cycle. But that being said, let me not paint a doom and gloom story. I think the opportunity is still large. The reason why we are investing and continue remain invested is the fact that we see the opportunity. We see that we can build a scalable ecosystem of both manufacturers, users, clients, and operators like ourselves. So that's my 2 cents.
So how are you overcoming this? In terms of what are you doing about it? Yeah.
So we as a policy invest in platforms, right? We want to build a platform which can sort of address this. And what we are currently having discussions with is with manufacturers to figure out how we can build a cold chain infrastructure which is suited for India's demand. A number of opportunities or number of pieces of infrastructure that we see today is not suited for India's demand. And what I mean by that is price points. A cold storage built on a specific standard for Europe cannot absorb the cost of a product which is manufactured in India. Let's just be honest about it. And that's really where innovation needs to come in. That's where people like you need to guide, aid, help, both from a government standpoint as well as private operator standpoint, and try and sort of bridge that in. The opportunity is there. You can talk about wastage, you can talk about lack of cold chain in pharmaceuticals, so on and so forth, but the bridge is bringing everybody together.
Awesome, Samir. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you. We'll invite Tanvi to add to Samir, but from your industry perspective, Tanvi, tell us, while the government has been supporting logistics, what is it that you have faced in terms of the containers that you have added on, and specifically the refrigeration containers, and how do you think you have overcome this challenge, the difficulties that you faced?
Well, if we keep this specific to what happened in the COVID, the challenges we faced in COVID. Firstly, Akash, just to add on to the question that you said, that transportation is still not gotten the status of an industry in India yet, and that is the biggest challenge that we face. That we are not recognized as a industry as of yet. And even though we are such an essential part of the entire ecosystem and the entire supply chain of essential products, medicines, now that we've been in a pandemic, we know what is really important, what parts play so important. Even though everything is shut, transport needs to be on. Well, that's that. And Whereas COVID is concerned, we had definitely a lot of challenges at the beginning. While there was a scare in March 2020, there was a lot of scare between, all of us were scared and everyone was going back home, everyone going back to the native places. And at the same time, all our staff, our drivers, truck drivers who are not natively from Maharashtra, or, where we are from, or where our major hubs, transport hubs are, they were not in these areas, and everyone went back. And to bring those people back on the job was one big challenge, because of no public transportation available. Government was, there were a lot of new rules that were coming up every week, or I would say every 2 days there were new things coming up. So a lot of difficulties our truck drivers had to face, frankly, because truck drivers are not given the kind of status or importance, in a daily basis. When you see, even on the roads, you see, all the traffic police is also always troubling the truck drivers majorly, ki, baju mein laga truck वगैरह. So it's a little bit, little bit difficult for us to get more and more truck drivers on the road and work during the pandemic, where there is, scare and everyone is scared. Nobody wants to step out, but we want them to go out and work. So which was a big challenge at the beginning. The first couple of months we were having not full capacity vehicles on the road, and the en route, there was no food, no dhabas, nothing on for the truck drivers to take a break or eat, or how are they supposed to work. On these things are where we want the government to have more clarity and more thought put into while taking decisions like these in such critical situations where we faced a pandemic. And that's where we had a huge challenge. And of course, we were one of the few companies who retained our staff, paid them full salaries, and we are proud of it, to keep them surviving, keeping the company surviving, and not cutting down, or doing all these kind of things. But we want other people to also understand these things, like our clients to understand these things, that there are challenges we're facing, challenges like Samir mentioned, that fuel costs or truck costs, those were huge impacts for us, and still is. Fuel is just going on an upward trend. If you and me, all of us drive vehicles here, or and you can see how it has affected all of us. And you can imagine, for truck, for us it's almost 55 to 60% of the costing for us. The fuel is, and taxes are not going down anywhere. Like you mentioned, there are so many parts, like copper, if you mentioned, that affects the refrigeration units cost, and that affects us as a transporter to buy them as a product, and then maintaining them. And it's a huge difficulty. And what happens is, clients, the end customer, a manufacturer or a pharma giant or a food giant, wants, when they come up to cost cutting, the first person that comes to their mind is transport, supply chain. That's the first person who's gone to, and they try to do cost cutting with them, and which is where we want them to listen to us and understand our dilemmas and our difficulties, and work with us. There is always a way to work with us, and we need to be heard, basically, just to make sure that we can give you the best of the services. Because considering it to be a vaccine, and considering it to be a product, a pharmaceutical product, you don't want them to be transported in a poorly refrigerated truck, and not maintained to the level required. Like Mr. Jaishankar mentioned, that so many reefer units and trainings and everything went into it, so that you get the best quality vaccine. Once you're vaccinated, you want the vaccine to work. So that's, all these things are important, and these are huge challenges that we faced. But yes, slowly and steadily we are overcoming them, and we're just hoping that some parts where we can't control, but the government can do something about it, can maybe hear us, and maybe make Rata or someone else, like to be a part of these decision making forums where we can be a part of making a better tomorrow for us, for all of us.
Awesome, Tanvi. Awesome. I'm sure, while you look at the transport industry, there will be another entire association also representing this. But when it comes to
Absolutely.
the refrigerated, containers, that's where Rata can actually bring this voice to the
Absolutely.
government, because that is exactly what you're mentioning. That on one side you've had your input costs going up, and hence the cost of that container has gone up. On the other
Right.
side, your customer is looking at you as plain vanilla. He doesn't know there's a container on top which has where the price has gone up, and he's still
Right.
looking at you as traditionally a transporter has been looked at. So
Correct.
we take this point, and I'll move to my next speaker. I'll come back to
Thank
you,
you.
Tanvi.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Jaishankar.
Yeah.
So please, with all that pride and the initiatives that you jumped into, now tell us, when it comes to Atmanirbhar Bharat, what are the challenges that you still feel exist in this Make in India initiative?
I think couple of points Samir and Jaisal both have touched upon. Uh, One about rising cost, which I'll dwell upon, and the other is when you are essentially supplying a critical part of the supply chain to an essential industry, you have to be kind of given that status. So one of the key things which, if I have to look back and figure out what are the challenges which we had to overcome, plethora of permits to get a manufacturing going in terms of during the lockdown, employees to come and safe passage of employees to come. COVID protocols, understand this is something which is given to get those permits, to get those safe passage licenses. It was an enormous task, not for us. We had to do that for a value chain two levels down, because a vendor has to give us parts, and his vendor has to give him the raw material or the semi-processed goods. So this cascading effect had to be managed throughout the whole thing. And it's quite right that if you are part of an essential industry, all of this should be automatically coming your way. The kind of effort which you need to put should not be there. Samir mentioned about rising costs, import duties. One needs to understand that at this point in time, there has to be some leeway given so that goods are affordable. Uh, and and there is one point which was briefly touched upon, which was, if people are investing in scale and economy, demand has to be there. No, you can't have this only procurement coming through from government agencies. No, government has certain obligations on its own. It has certain you know, purchasing power. Beyond that, it has to be kind of way of life for the private industry also. No? And for one, in the Atmanirbhar thing, I definitely feel there has to be policy interventions. There has to be minimum guidelines as to what kind of cold chain equipments have to be set up when you want to set up essential healthcare services like hospitals, even supply chain network, and those have to be qualified and certified. You, if that is not done, and then minimum, let's take the case of uh, large rung hospitals. They've variabilized their oxygen generation cost. They didn't want to actually spend on capital. They've gone into cylinders, and when the demand peaked, they were left caught unaware. And suddenly you find that when someone like a big hospital who pours in 100 crores, they have not spent around 1 crore on an oxygen generator. So that's the kind of policy intervention which has to come. Look at the case of private practitioners, pediatricians. Now, what kind of equipments are they storing their vaccines in? When we talk about vaccine efficacy till the last point of delivery, obviously the point of delivery matters even in private run hospitals, and their policy interventions has to come. A certified. I've gone across the country and I've seen broken down refrigerators, normal direct cool refrigerators being used for vaccine storage. How is it going to sustain the efficacy of the vaccine? you need to have certified, WHO certified. Why is WHO guidelines being formulated? So that uniform standards can be applied across nations. And that kind of policy intervention has to come. And a pediatrician's license has to be renewed only when he has the proper equipments to deliver the services he's supposed to deliver. Now, those kind of interventions are required. Uh, Commodity interventions, so demand, if it is curtailed, the scale will not come. So all of these are the small aspects which I think government intervention is definitely required to kind of ensure there is demand and the right quality of products are used.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Jaishankar. I don't, I'm sure this is out of experience of things the way it has happened in the past, but this is absolutely a great platform. And I think it's from the horse's mouth so that, if the government listens to this, I'm sure they will think in terms of this for the future. And thanks for representing the industry in the way you've just brought it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jaisal. Okay. Again, it's the global supply chain, right, that you've been very close to. So we just want to know that how do they meet the sudden demand, and what are the challenges over there? Also, what challenges have you been facing since you've been setting up manufacturing in India?
Sure.
So
So,
yeah.
before I respond to that, Akash, I'd like to completely echo what Jaishankar said. In that, what we see is the government has actually done a lot in terms of vaccine distribution across the country, but the private sector is still lost in that paradigm of cost and only cost matters. And I think there we do need a shift, because you should be looking at essentially the total cost, and not just what is the cost of transporting from point A to point B, but what happens if in that process the vaccine loses its efficacy. So I think that is an extremely important point. Coming to the global supply chain, I think Europe has been badly hit as most, but perhaps even worse than most other parts of the world. And we have had situations where we have suppliers who give us lead times of 84 weeks. And when you think about that, I think it is an extremely difficult situation to manage. We are one way, of course, is to work very closely with suppliers and provide them better projections. But that is the other complication that COVID brings, which is the high amount of uncertainty. And I think there is, unfortunately, sitting with a sort of global perspective, we feel that the pain is still to come. So we do see even more commodity price increases coming, even more supply shortages, lead increases in lead time. And I think that I while I do hope that my peers would not agree with me, I unfortunately that is the reality that a lot of us will continue to see. And one, of course, the other way is to increase your stock levels. But what that has done globally is, and this is not just the case for our industry, but for many others. But globally, what you see is the large players are getting stronger, and the smaller players are getting squeezed. And I think that is also happening in this industry, even in India. Uh, your other question on challenges that we face in India, I think they are very unique Indian challenges, but we have been lucky to sort of overcome all of them with a lot of support of local partners and collaborators. And I think that is also one of the big positives of COVID, which is globally the amount of collaboration you see across peers, across what historically were competitors, is just unparalleled. And I do hope that that continues also going forward, because that's the only way the industry can sort of learn from each other and improve. So, so far, I think in India, we face sort of the typical challenges, but to give you an example of also a positive sign, because I think that is, it's also important to talk about good things. Uh, when we applied for our factory license, we got our approval for factory license, and believe it or not, in 2 hours. And I think that is just something that you don't see anywhere in the world. It's not just about India. but and I think it sends back a very positive message to companies looking to invest in India. So I think it's also something that we should be proud about, that India has really changed, and there is genuinely uh, a betterment in the ease of doing business in the country.
Thanks, Jaisal. You've I think been, it looks like you were meant to come here. So everything has fallen in place, and where, the government could not maybe set up things the way other panelists have also spoken. Maybe you've been lucky to have your local partners helping you out over there. So uh, great. Wishing you good luck ahead. I'll come back to you on the Vaccination Industry.
Sorry, Akash, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Oh, so sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. So Samir, this is going to be a quick, point on how maybe, what as per you have been the integrated solutions from that could potentially solve the end-to-end temperature tracking, which is so critical in terms of vaccine, and also on a large scale. What are the challenges that you see in this?
So I think the answer is I can answer this in two different ways, and they're both divergent as well as contradictory in some ways. But let me just address it, and I'll try and tie it in.
Sure, sure.
Um, the cold chain required for vaccine transport is essentially taking it from, just to very broadly put it out, it's taking it from source to and making sure that Akash gets it in the right temperature so that its efficacy uh, doesn't reduce in any way, right? That's what the goal is. Um, and I think it has to be done at cost points which work both for the consumer as well as for the manufacturer, right? That's really what the end goal is. That's why I'm around, you are around, everybody else is around. The solution which worked in India for polio can be replicated for any particular vaccination drive, right? That's something that we've been a big proponent of, right? You talk about 1 crore vaccinations being done in a day. To give you an idea, in 1997 or 96, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 198 million polio vaccines were disseminated in a day in India. So it's not, the infrastructure that we're talking about is existent. The question is, how do you get it all together? And the shock of COVID has really pushed things around. And I think collaboration, I think, Indianized solutions to this is really what the answer really is. Because believe it or not, there are a lot of international countries, players who are looking at how we've done it. And these are conversations we've been party to. This is the normal question that we get hold as soon as we are sort of entering into an international global contract for logistics, for example. The one question I always get posed is how is India managing
Large.
the large piece? And I said, look, it's just collaboration. You need a driving force, and you need a driving force that allows private participation to make the process efficient. That's been missing in certain ways, and I think it could have been done a lot better than what it has actually. That's my answer to this.
Thank you, Samir. We're just falling a little short of time, so I'll move to Tanvi. Hi, Tanvi. Welcome again.
Hi.
And this question is directly, in terms of the reefer truck. So once again, we'd like to know that, what are the IT disruptions that are coming into the reefer containers, specifically for remote monitoring and services management?
Well, I would say track and trace, which everyone is talking about, and it's already in place in trucking. Even though some people are still not aware that all trucks can be tracked. Right now, every transporter is equipped with GPS. But along with that, live temperature tracking is what what is making noise everywhere, and that is good. Even though we've had it for the last 20 years in our trucks, but a lot of people are now getting into the groove where it is important and it's one of the essential things that is needed. However, along with that, a lot of talk going on regarding an end-to-end visibility or a blockchain within the supply chain industry, and which is a very interesting, and I have been looking forward to it since a couple of years. I have been attending a lot of forums and a lot of talks where we are talking more and more about blockchain and having the visibility and connect within the industry, so that there is a kind of trust with each other, and faster link from one service provider to the second service provider. For example, if it's getting exported, if my CHA is already can track where my truck is and can track where it is, and everything is at one platform, not where there are 10 different websites or 10 different platforms, having some kind of a single. This is where the government will definitely, I do think that the government will be playing a very important part there. And of course, we are all ready for it, and we are all equipped with a lot of all these sensors and everything in place. So that is one thing which I'm looking forward to. And that's about it. I think that's a very major.
Absolutely, Tanvi. I'm happy that second generation has joined Rima Transport, and that's where the blockchain thoughts are also opening, and you're ready to implement as soon as you're getting some support.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of platforms already available, so it's good to understand that this is being implemented in the refrigeration industry.
Yes,
you're bringing in trust, you're bringing in reliability. Awesome. Looking forward, Tanvi.
Thanks.
Hi, Mr. Jaishankar. One more issue, and that is the power supply. If it's unsteady, what are the challenges and how do you manage this?
So when I started meeting stakeholders, and this was a primary concern, a refrigeration unit requires 24/7 power and good quality power. So now either we didn't have any power, or we had issues on quality of power. So more from a point of view of number of hours of power availability or voltage fluctuations. No, my experiences I can share with you. Bangalore Metro, close to the healthcare center, all the refrigerators used to go kaput, and we figured out it has nothing to do with the healthcare center. It has to do with the tunneling which was happening for the metro, and all the spike was more than 2.5 3 kV. So we started understanding the kind of impact these kind of things will have on the power electronics which is required. So when we started off, the technology itself what we chose had a thermal backup of 3 to 4 days. No, it was power agnostic, as I mentioned. So that gave us leverage of, if anything happens to the refrigerator, we don't need to kind of remove the vaccine stock. Our vast service network would handle this within 24 to 30 hours, when we change the part. The second is on stabilizer building, spike guards, and also on power electronics to power the refrigerator. We had to up the standards from a normal 2 kV spike the protection to around 4 kV for India. Now, this is specifically because there are so many infrastructure projects. You will say that the rural power transmission is poor. There would be a lot of quality of power will be a big issue over there. I can vouch that even the mega cities have huge issues of power transmission, purely because there are a number of infrastructure projects ongoing. So we have consciously decided to kind of incorporate these two learnings in our things, but the situation is improving. So while this is unnecessary added cost into the refrigerator, we're waiting and watching the situation, and we will ensure that we scale down once it is better.
Awesome, Mr. Jaishankar. Everybody knows about the power supply issue, and you've still stressed on reliability with a backup and a great service team. Super. Thank you. Hi, Jaisal. Welcome back. And I'm just taking it forward on the ultra low chambers that we were talking about. So how do you see the solar getting into this kind of an industry?
Well, I think it certainly will. As you know, one of the challenges of getting the Pfizer vaccine to many parts of the world is the ultra cold requirement, and that is one of the reasons that has also impacted India's situation. And what you do see is more and more interesting technologies coming in to actually make ultra cold chain possible without having electricity. I think solar is one, but there are also other technologies coming in. You also have DC power based technologies. And I think one of the very interesting consequences of the Pfizer vaccine is that the amount of interest it has generated amongst refrigeration manufacturers, compressor manufacturers, technology players to create something that can help every vaccine reach the last mile is incredible. So I certainly see solar powered ultra cold chain, DC or battery powered ultra cold chain using other sources coming in very soon. In fact, some of them still already do exist even today, and I think it's again, I think what this has done for the refrigeration industry has brought in so much focus, and with focus comes a lot of interest and technologies that are coming in. So I am very positive that you will have a lot more interesting technologies coming in on the ultra cold chain side.
Thank you so much, Jaisal. I'll hand over to Ajit. Ajit, I am ending my part with getting to you a great bunch of, you can say, people who are ready to become large scale with investments, putting trust, reliability as the focus, and who are future ready. So over to you, Ajit.
Yeah, amazing 90 minutes. This was like a knowledge session. Half of us who are even in the industry did not even know about it. Forget about people who are not even connected with the industry. And I think that is extremely important to actually send that message across, that how this industry works. And I think it's great. So before we wind up, one round of quick questions to all our panelists. So Samir, the first question is to you. What do you think is required to grow this industry? There's a huge opportunity here which COVID has got. So what, according to you, is really required to push this to the next level?
I think requires collaboration. I think it requires trust. I think Tanvi touched upon it as well. She brought in the term blockchain. I think blockchain works on the basis of trust and ledgers, and I think that's really what's going to drive growth in the industry, because there is latent demand sitting around. Everything needs to sort of come together. That's really what's going to drive demand.
Awesome. Growth. That's right. Absolutely. And Tanvi, from your side, one of the things that the association is always building the right ecosystem. Now, with the reefer industry and the reefer logistics all set to grow, which are the other allied industries that you think can actually grow along with it? I mean, it kind of gives the opportunity for a lot of MSMEs to get into new businesses. So what are the other allied industries?
I definitely think that, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. I think we just lost.
Definitely think that compliances and quality control players will be will see a growth. Along with them, more and export of perishable products, medicines. Now that people are having the kind of trouble with China, we are looking at India is more on the front line and more in focus for manufacturing. So I'm definitely hoping for a huge growth opportunities for manufacturing and exports globally for perishable products and pharmaceuticals. Along with that, definitely a lot of, like Jaisal said, a lot of innovation in refrigeration products and how we can, use maybe different sources of fuel or maybe solar. Any of these kind of, new innovations are definitely going to see a big boom, definitely coming in the coming time. And any innovation in truck panels or trucking boxes, maintaining temperature without electricity. I mean, that would be, just perfect. So how we can do that and minimize the wastage of food, especially because food is also a huge, we have so much scope for exports in India, but because of reefer challenges, refrigeration challenges at small levels, which is a difficulty. But looking at the growth now and the focus that we are getting overall, I think that is a lot of all these to see a lot of growth opportunities in the coming time.
That's awesome, yeah, because we are, as an association, we've been also encouraging new entrepreneurship into the industry. We also reach out to a lot of the technical institutes and the engineering institutes around. So building the startup ecosystem around the HVAC and our segment. So that's great inputs for budding entrepreneurs who want to
Yes.
actually get into it. So awesome, that's great. Mr. Jaishankar, what do you think the government should be doing? You are the oldest company. Nobody understands the Indian bureaucracy and government as much as you do. So I think
So-
it's time to spell it out. What is the government what is the government needs to do to make sure that we can move to the next level?
I think there is enough and more consumption. A lot of hospitals are coming up, both secondary and tertiary level. A lot of daycare centers, clinics are coming up, uh, uh, private practitioners. What is needed is, as I said, policy intervention to ensure the right quality of products are only bought, and the licenses which are given are based on the investments which are made upfront on such kind of products. Because if you shortchange on some of the critical equipments, yes, service quality delivery would suffer, and this latent need is actually subdued. So this is something which we look forward to. We have been engaging the government to intervene and have BI standards evolved, and policies made for such kind of usage, where critical blood, vaccines, insulin, many such vital drugs. You need certified equipments where it is stored and transported.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I hope that message goes across to the government, because this can be a focus industry. And with a little bit of government support, we can create more jobs. We can increase the entrepreneurial ecosystem, even in the HVAC and R segment. Jaisal, you get to have the final word. Tell us what are the innovations in the refrigeration industry that you're going to expect in the near future? I mean, have you identified certain gaps? Because when you identify certain gaps, and from the industry perspective, as an association, we get the opportunity to drive entrepreneurship towards those segments, rather than overcrowding the already existing businesses. So what are the kind of gaps that you would see?
Well, Ajit, first of all, the advantage of being last is I can plagiarize without being accused of doing that. But I think that some of the gaps have already been identified. I think the focus on quality, on ensuring minimal wastage, I think is an absolutely critical gap. And there you see a very interesting intersection of brick and mortar technologies with digitization. Tanvi spoke about blockchain, and I think that is something that is already happening, will continue innovating in the near future. Where I do see the scope of innovation also is making that process seamless, because you have many multiple players across the value chain. And for example, if you're exporting drugs from India to Tanzania, and if the shipment is held up by customs, what happens to monitoring? I think these are practical challenges that each one of us face on a daily basis, and which need to be addressed. And I'm pretty sure the solution to that will be innovation. I also think, interestingly, there is a lot of interest back in the brick and mortar technologies of refrigeration. And I think that is something very heartening to see, because, whilst the world is moving towards digital and everything is virtual, some parts still need to be brick and mortar. Right? We cannot still replace a compressor. And I think there to see the kind of innovations that are coming up, and we are working with some of the largest compressor manufacturers globally, where you see a lot of interesting innovations coming up. I think also the ultra cold chain is something we spoke about, and I expect that to become more and more part of the mainstream, especially as mRNA, specialty pharma, personalized medicine also start becoming part and parcel of our daily lives. So I think there is COVID fortunately for us as an industry, has brought about a lot of recognition, but also a lot of very interesting technologies that have already come up and will continue to come up. I do hope that we also get recognition as not just being part of the refrigeration industry, but really recognition as a specialist medical cold chain, because that is very different from a household refrigerator. And again, or a commercial refrigerator used for storing ice creams, for example. And there, I think, is something that Rata, I'm sure, can play a big role in helping us achieve that recognition. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Ajit.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, in fact, it's been a wonderful 90 session. I think we just overshoot by about 10, 15 minutes. But I guess we've kind of sent the message across to everybody as to how big this industry is, the possibilities that is there around this industry. And I hope the government has heard us. And at the association, you can be rest assured. We are going to actually keep raising this voice. We believe this is an opportunity that exists to grow the business. There's a huge opportunities for the startup ecosystem. There's a huge opportunity, like Jason said, even for the regular brick and mortar business to do innovation and scale up the business. They say the refrigeration industry is just about getting started in our country. If that government can give a little bit of push to us, I think we can do wonders. And a country of billion people, I think we are just waiting to get there and make it happen. So Akash, you want to summarize on this? I think it's been a great learning session, great 90 minutes on what we've actually done before we actually close the session.
I just think, Ajit, it's an absolute great time to have done this session because we are halfway there. We are 650 million vaccinations been driven and another 650 to go. So let's have a era of pre this session and post this session, and let's see what's coming out of it. So, but extremely heartening to listen to all your stories, and thank you very much for it.
Yeah. To all our panelists here, thank you so much for taking time out and actually sharing that information. I know there's been a wealth of knowledge that has been shared with our trade today, and it's going to actually stimulate quite a bit of good ideas. And we'll keep tracking those, and we'll keep engaging with all of you all over again to get back and to motivate the entire trade. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.